So we're just gonna have a little fun today, and you might see something on the table there. There's white substance and a Campbell's can. No, I'm not sponsored by Campbell's, but I'll be happy to have a conversation if they want to reach out. But what you're looking at there is a little bit of cream of mushroom soup that I found in my refrigerator, which wasn't quite enough. So I picked up another can, and we have mixed it together there. And like in any good, football talk or conversation, you got to have some sort of bet. So at the end of this podcast, Josh and I are going to do some trivia. Lifelong Packers fan, lifelong 49ers fan. We're going to see how well we know our teams. And the loser of that simply is going to chug that nasty glass of cream of mushroom soup and ruin mushrooms for us for the rest of our life.
It's going to be great.
Welcome to the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. I'm your host, Yuma Barnett, and you guys see a familiar face here, Josh Jacobs. Josh was on episode number 2 of the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. If you haven't checked that out, go back there and listen to it. Josh is retiring from the Army the same day that I am. Known Josh forever, and he's also in the MBA program up at Emory University at their Gozetta Business School. So he's representing there, and we talk about all of that on the other podcast. But go over there and check it out. It's well worth a listen. But today we're coming at you a little bit early, not on our normal Monday because it's Super Bowl week.
Super Bowl.
And being in the military, the football and sports, it's a big part of the culture. So I thought we should probably do a Super Bowl show and talk a little bit about sports and what it means to us, and then break down the game, because we served in the same platoon for a long time, same companies. We've had these conversations overseas in various locations, in the back of trucks or inside of Afghan buildings that we've taken over and are living in, breaking down a football game and talking trash about football or whatever sport it is. So I thought we could have some fun and do a little bit of that here and just talk about sports and do something a little bit different, because sometimes these shows can get a little bit heavy with some of the content that we're covering. So we're just gonna have a little fun today, and you might see something on the table there. There's white substance and a Campbell's can. No, I'm not sponsored by Campbell's, but I'll be happy to have a conversation if they want to reach out. But what you're looking at there is a little bit of cream of mushroom soup that I found in my refrigerator, which wasn't quite enough. So I picked up another can, and we have mixed it together there. And like in any good, football talk or conversation, you got to have some sort of bet. So at the end of this podcast, Josh and I are going to do some trivia. Lifelong Packers fan, lifelong 49ers fan. We're going to see how well we know our teams. And the loser of that simply is going to chug that nasty glass of cream of mushroom soup and ruin mushrooms for us for the rest of our life.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. It's all about mindset going into it right now.
I do have my Packers memorabilia on underneath here as well. So
that's good. And I mean, it would only be fitting if I win, because I beat you guys in the playoffs again this year. So we've got your number. I think it's time for Aaron to move on and try somebody else in there. But we'll get into that. But I'm going to move this off the table. And the first thing we're going to do is just kind of talk about our own sports journey. So I'm going to move this so we're not smelling it and looking at it for the next hour.
Yeah, no need for the torture.
And I'll pass it off to Josh to talk a little bit of his sports background, and yeah, we'll just go from there.
So growing up on the mean streets of Wisconsin, up in the East Coast, West Coast of Lake Michigan, east side of the state, big football area, baseball, wrestling. Those are the 3 predominant sports that I played during that time. And kind of what built me to that was we were 5 miles outside of town on a farm, small farm, middle of the country. And what kind of set my tone for my sports related activities in life. I had 3 older brothers. We had a gravel driveway. We used to always play basketball on that gravel driveway, sometimes barefoot. Sometimes shoes on, but it was like, if you're familiar with the Arch Rivals video game, it was like Arch Rivals, basketball, there were old railroad ties that lined the back, of the gravel driveway behind the hoop. So you had the railroad ties to contest with, and a wooden basketball hoop with a rim screwed to it that, when you went up to go for the hoop, the competition was heavy and the contact underneath the hoop was significant. So learned a lot of lessons on that court. And we also had a a large area between our chicken coop and our barn growing up, and a big field that we could play baseball and football in. And we used to have all of the kids from town come out, and we would play soccer, we'd play baseball, we'd play football out in that farm field. And it was just like one of the greatest. It was like having our own sports complex, growing up, and all the kids from town would ride their bikes out to us, and we'd have 30 kids out there with the garden hose strung out on the side of the house for water when need be, and my mom would throw us some food every now and again.
Yeah.
We probably stressed her out a little bit, feeding that whole crew. But that kind of led up to my life, competing against my brothers in sports, having all the kids from the community coming out and us playing sports together. Eventually led me down the road of really focusing on. I played basketball in my youth quite a bit, but then that would later conflict with football, and I would go down the football road. And in the basketball realm, I was one of the tallest kids in school, and my friend Jonah Everson and I, we were like the two tallest kids on the team, and we would stand at the base of the hoop, get the ball, and throw the ball up at the hoop, and he would catch it on the other side and throw it, and we'd miss back and forth until one of us eventually.
So you're
hit
just
the
patting
basket.
each other's stats.
That's right.
Rebound.
Rebounds, assists,
Yeah.
goals. We had a lot of those growing up as kids.
That's good.
Eventually, I realized that I would be better suited to play football. Went down that road, did a lot of wrestling and a lot of football at that point, and then baseball in the summers. Really developed for football through wrestling. Obviously wrestling and football focus on the weight room development, but then wrestling also adds into that football acumen by giving you the weight distribution and balance, being able to leverage people's weight against themselves, which helped me later on down the road. I would then go on to play a lot of high school football, played right tackle. We were predominantly a running program, so right tackle was like the left tackle that you would think of today. Right tackle, 46 lead dive, 4 back over the 6 hole. My coach would turn to me and would say, "Is it there?" I would tell him yes. He would say, "Run it until it bleeds." And we would run the 46 lead dive until they shifted enough of their defense to stop it, and then we would start running some counters and stuff. But the workhorse, and I got that from my brothers. We were some of the biggest kids out of our family in that school, and they used all of us on that offensive line. I would then play a little tight end here and there, catch some passes as need be, and then a lot of defensive end. I was recruited by some schools at defensive end, but I was focused a little too much on the other pleasures in life at that time, and that kind of led me astray. So I didn't necessarily pursue any sports coming out of school. Went into the field of construction. Went down that road, and while I was doing that, I actually played on a semi-pro football team in the Ironman Football League up in the Midwest. There were some ex-Green Bay Packers that played on that. I played a lot of defensive end. What was really cool about that opportunity is it gave me a chance to play with my brothers.
Cool.
My 2 twin brothers. One of them played right outside linebacker, and I was the right defensive end.
Yeah.
So we got to work together, playing off of each other during that entire time there. And my other brother was a safety. And then we'd also, play spot in some offensive roles, tight end here and there for me. And
What a unique opportunity.
it was awesome to get to play with them and to have that experience and to meet some of these folks that had been successful on the Packers and then eventually left the professional career, still had that itch to play football.
Yeah, I'm sure sports had an impact on your life in a lot of ways, and we'll cover that in a minute. When you're telling your story, I'm picturing the movie Invincible when they're all playing like that backlot football, rough and tumble, blue collar type football is kind of what I'm picturing in that league up in Wisconsin. Yeah. A couple Miller Lights and old fashions maybe happened on the sidelines or at halftime for sure.
There was a lot, a lot. Yeah. There was no Gatorade showers. Let me tell you that.
Most of you guys kind of know my sports story. I've told it before. I grew up in New Mexico, really small town. I graduated with 11 people. Yeah, you heard that correctly, 11 people. But basketball was king where I came from. We had a football team there in Comadre, New Mexico, a 6-man football team that both my brothers played on who are older than me. But by the time I got to high school, football was gone. I wrote petitions and did all kinds of things to try to get it back, but we stayed at basketball school, and I kind of fell in love with basketball. My brothers were also really good athletes, both good at basketball and football. So, I'm lagging 12, 15 years behind my brothers, chasing their shadows. I'm being coached by their people that they played with. So it was kind of interesting for me. Most of my parents got divorced when I was younger, and I'll credit basketball for probably main reason I got through high school, right? I mean, it seems my cliche to be. I probably would have got through, but I wouldn't have got through with the grades I had because I had to stay eligible to play basketball. And I think that's for a lot of us A-type personality. We needed those. We needed that sports structure to help us in other parts of our life. And I just kind of remember one story about the basketball is I was after my freshman year. I'm in the doing the exit type interview with the coach before we leave, and I know the coach played with my brothers in high school. And I'm sitting there. I had a pretty good freshman year. I only played JV that whole year. And, he sits there one on one and he says, Yuma, you're pretty good, but you don't have a left hand, so you'll never be as good as Tuffy, which is my oldest brother. And you're not very tall. I don't think you're going to be tall enough to be a post player. So, I mean, you don't have all the tools yet. And it really ticked me off at the time. And I didn't realize until years later, I think he did that on purpose so I would work my butt off to chase my older brother, Tuffy, who's a phenomenal athlete at football, basketball, rodeo, and I'll begrudgingly say he's probably a little better than me at all of those. But it really put a drive on me for that summer where I went to my dad's, where because my parents lived in separate places, and I spent more time out on that New Mexico dirt, just hitting a left hand after left hand into that basketball goal over the old light pole there on the ranch. And I had a growth spurt. I grew about 4 inches that summer. I left at like 5'9", 5'10", and I came back 6'1". So I came back, had a left hand, got taller, and I started 72 games straight from my sophomore year to my senior year. And much like you, I had some opportunities to play in college, some junior colleges and some walk-on tryout type stuff, but I just wasn't academically. I was just done with school at the time. So I chose the military route. I don't regret it at all, but I do have every once in a while have that thought like, I wish I would have tried this, but it's not that. We've had a great ride in the military, and we'll kind of discuss how they parallel one another. But I'll kick into the next kind of subject about where sports, what it taught us as kids, and why sports is so important, and particularly how it set us up for service. Really, the responsibility, dealing with failure, discipline, initiative, teamwork. Every cliche thing you can say about sports, it's 100% true. I learned everything from sports. I learned everything from coaches on how to do things, and I think before I pass it off to you, Josh, to discuss a little bit, I think the two things that I really later in life I appreciated more about sports was failure. Hated losing. I hated losing basketball games. Drove me nuts. My last basketball game that we lost, they had to drag me off the court. I'm sitting there crying and sobbing because I knew it was the end of it. But it built up some resiliency in me that I used when I went to selections in Afghanistan, all this stuff. I'd already done a lot of hard things and a lot of long, late nights, leaving the house before sun comes up, basketball practice till 9 p.m. and then going home. So that dealing with failure, and then just the teamwork, that you have to have teamwork if you're going to succeed. Because I was a pretty good basketball player, and at times I would think I could do it all on my own, right? You get a little big-headed, and you get humbled very fast when you either run into a team that knows how to shut you down, or you have a bad night, or your teammates come up to you and tell you, hey, man, you're kind of being a ball hog out there, and not we could be better if you would share. Those are two lessons that really stuck out to me, and then I carried forward for the last 22 plus years in the Army. What about you?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that you pointed out there is you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes,
Yeah.
and that experience really honed in on that. It taught me that success is great, but failure can be a very good stepping stone and learning opportunity.
Yeah.
And you can really make some significant gains there. Relating to other people, learning personalities, learning styles. It was the first place I tell my cohort members at Emory all the time that I receive feedback. It can be in a group, it could be one-on-one, however, you can do it in front of the entire class. But I want brutally honest, upfront,
Yeah.
no holds barred feedback.
Yeah.
And I think I learned that first in sports, and then again in the military. In the 75th Ranger Regiment, you do not have the opportunity to have thin skin.
Right.
You have to come in
Exactly.
with thick skin or develop thick skin, and you have to take that brutally honest feedback, that bottom line up front mentality of receiving that feedback, being able to receive it in front of other people, accept your failures in front of other people, and then learn from those mistakes and turn them into successes down the road. Structure, discipline, and then the other component of that, as you kind of progress through your sports career, is leadership, learning how to be a leader, what to do as a leader. And it kind of goes back to what the other point, relating to other people. How do you best communicate to other people to get them to do the things that you want to do? So if you're the leader of that defense, the leader of the offense, the leader of the offensive line, it could be a segment of the entire entity, but you're leading the group. You have to learn how to talk to your folks to get the best out of them. And that goes from, coaches to you, and you learn that through the experience of being coached. But then as you become a leader within your team, you then have the opportunity to coach the younger guys. And that really creates this developmental opportunity for you to grow as a human being and step into that realm of leadership as a young man.
Yeah. Yeah. I think both of us had exactly the same leadership positions coming through the military. And I knew when we got in new guys, there was two questions I wanted to know from them. Really, it was like, where did you grow up? Like, what did you do? Like, what did your parents do? Were you a country kid? Did you grow up in the city? So I could kind of understand work ethic and what they saw every day. And two, did you play sports? And did you, what sports did you play? Did you play them? Where were you at in sports? So if you just had a guy, he played t-ball when he was a kid, but then he went away from it. That's different than a guy who played all the way through high school, because he's been coached. He's had to be on time. He's had to be in the right place. He's had to stay eligible. He's had to do some things. So I'd always take those country kids and those sports guys in my platoons, and I think that kind of leads us into where we are today in sports. And you mentioned something very good when you were talking about playing out there in the fields, in the driveway, playing basketball, playing baseball, playing football, playing all of this, just a multifaceted amount of sports. And we have seen in our generation, the last 10 years, the specialization athlete, where at 10 years old, he's only going to be a pitcher, and he's going to pitch spring ball, fall ball, and winter ball. And that's all that kid's going to do. Or he's going to be a football player, and that's it, or a basketball player, and that's it. And we've seen the rise of magnet type schools that recruit athletes, that ING Academy and all those guys, to put them together and are molding them to be a basketball player or a football player. The rise in parents being so overcautious in this environment where they can get information so fast that they hold kids out of sports because they're afraid of concussions and they're afraid of them getting hurt. And the other thing that's combating it is the rise of culture. Is I speak to a lot of younger people in the military, younger kids, my son's generation. They want to be professional video game players. They want to be YouTube content creators. They don't want to be Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan anymore. Some do, but it's farther and few between now than I remember. I will say, and I'll kick it off to you, is that I think one of the biggest is the over specialization. That drives me nuts. I think a kid should at least do two sports. If he's going to be a sports, until you get into high school, potentially, do everything, right? Develop all those muscles and that hand-eye coordination. And it proved true last week when the NFC and AFC championship games were 2 weeks ago. There was a stat I saw on one of the social media platforms that almost all of the top performers, your Mahomeses, the quarterbacks, your best defensive guys, they were all multi-sport athletes coming up. Baseball, basketball, football, track. All of them had two, and a lot of them had three. And you see where they are today. That's one thing I would wish more parents would see the value in that, instead of trying to chase what I call a paycheck, hopefully, for their kid. So what's your thoughts on some of the sports today?
Yeah, I think, like you said, specialization. A lot of parents, and it's generally the fault of the parent, that they would take their kid and they would pigeonhole them into the one thing because they think they can develop them to be the successful athlete. When the possibility of achieving that is so minute, that you're really missing out on the broader spectrum of developmental opportunities as an individual, as a team member, and then as a leader, as we talked about. Having the opportunity to grow and develop in multiple sports. You look at track and field and how that facilitates running sprints for a skill position player. And it's different types of coaching. One of my best friends growing up, he was a running back for our high school football team. Excellent athlete, very fast. But he did a lot of sprints and a lot of sprint work. And one of his most developmental coaches was that track and field coach that he had, that really specified. It was a specialist in technique and running technique and speed and fast twitch movement, and that contributed to his development on the football field and him becoming a better fast twitch athlete. He wrestled as well. Again, balance, contact balance. For me, wrestling, it showed me how to use leverage. Greco-Roman wrestling, and I wrestled in the 189 and the heavyweight classes. I got up into high school, and you're talking big boys and learning how to move big boys. Well, that definitely helped me on the offensive and defensive line, where I was both learning how to block somebody else and maintain control of them, and then also on the defensive line, where I was learning how to get them leverage off balance and move their body out of the way so that I can make my way to the quarterback or tailback. I think if I didn't have those opportunities to learn, grow, and develop in those other sports, I wouldn't have become as good at football as I was down the road. And I think we're missing, a lot of the kids are missing these opportunities. And for me, I tell my kids all the time, until you get to high school, much like you said, you're going to play a sport every single season. Whether you want to or not, that's what you need to do just to develop as a human being. And then once you get to high school, you can kind of refine that down. You still need to play multiple sports in high school. If you want to focus on two sports at that time, great. But two sports is kind of the minimum. And then we can go on from there. And that's a conversation I've had with them. Pulling kids from sports. First of all, player safety should always be the number one concern of everybody. And I think we all know that and see it. We've seen what has happened on the grand stage of the NFL with some of these issues that have come forth, and it's not much different than the military with TBI. TBI, PTSD type stuff. Those players are dealing with significant contact injuries and mental health issues from some of those contact injuries, and those are the things that need to be up front. Now, the player safety is gone very far. The NFL has done a good job of taking what they're doing and pushing it down to the lower levels of organizational sports, and I in my mind, you can't pull your kids out of sports because you're worried about them getting hurt. It would be like you never riding a horse when you were growing up, and living on a ranch, because your parents would be afraid that you might fall off. Falling off is good. It teaches you what not to do. There is the potential for injury, but you could get hit by a car crossing the street tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So you got to take those chances, and you have to make calculated decisions and calculated risk assessments to put your kids in the best situation for them to grow and develop as human beings.
I think you're right. And when I see parents pull kids from sports or don't allow them to go to sports, they never have a conversation with the coach, or they ask how are you mitigating head injuries now, or what are you doing, and what is USA football, that all the coach certs that you have to go take. They just kind of do it, and they remove the conversation, the dialogue from it. And that's the same with your kids playing multi-sports. By doing those multi-sports, they're meeting other kids, they're doing other things, they're broadening not just their athletic ability, just their personal ability, their communication ability, to their way. It's just sports are a great way to get kids, especially today, off the devices and up to doing something.
It goes back to social skills. You're teaching and learning social skills in sports, and that has been taken away by video games, by social media, and video games and social media can be an addiction like anything else.
Yeah.
And you can fall down a road of pigeonholing yourself into that one thing, and it becomes your sole focus in life, and you lose touch with everything else that's out there.
I think it's everything. You're trying to achieve a balance, right?
Yeah.
I've been known to play a little Call of Duty and John Madden in my life. I love it. It has its values of hand-eye coordination and understanding the things you may be able to do after school, but it shouldn't be your primary focus 6 hours a day like it is in some kids' lives. And and then it moves, once you're done with sports, right? And you're us and you have kids, and I especially say this to veterans out there who, when you leave the military, you don't realize how much teaching, coaching, mentoring you do if you're a good leader. And that is that one day it's there, and the next day that's gone. Get involved in youth sports. Get involved if you can in your community. Quick story about Josh and I. So Jackson needed a football coach a couple of years ago. I didn't play football, love football, played all the Maddens, played a lot of sandlot football growing up, know the game, but I didn't play it. So to coach it, I asked Josh, right? So he doesn't have a kid on this team. He's like Uncle Josh to Jackson. I asked Josh to help me coach at the community level. So he went, he got all the certs, he did all the stuff, and we had a blast teaching those young kids football and life skills. And I think it's something you can do, especially if you're anybody new in a community. Go hit up your community center, see who's the athletic association is, get involved, be a volunteer on the board. It's a great way to network in a community. It's a great way to give back to a community because they're always dying for coaches, and you don't have to have a kid to do it. Kids need, 90% of the coaches out there don't have a kid sitting on the bench, right? In high school and college and the pros. So you can go and give back to your community and really get at something that probably was driving you in the military, is that leadership stuff. I know we had a great time. I think we enjoyed the heck out of that, and Jackson still talks about that season that we had.
Yeah, that was aside from being a leader, growing up in sports, being a leader in the 75th Ranger Regiment. That was just one of the most fun times to be able to take young people and have an influence on them and their lives. And then also, influence on us, building emotional intelligence and empathy, like we talk about.
Yeah.
You come from a meat-eating Ranger regiment, you go to we had 11 kids to play
11-man football.
11-man football to play. We had 11 kids to play 22 positions,
right?
And special teams. So
you bring up a funny point. There is the dialect can be a little bit rough in the military, right? When you're teaching, coaching, and mentoring, it would probably, it's not going to be some words that my mom's going to enjoy being around, right? So going back to 10, 11, 12-year-olds and having to change, that did help. Like, it's helped in this transition phase, because sometimes when you get in those environments where you're in it for so long, 20 years, you start using words and language, and we'd every once in a while have to be, pull back and reset a little bit, which is kind of funny that the kids learned some stuff that season, some new words, and we learned some words from the kids. I will admit there's some salty kids out there too, but that's kind of the leading with vulnerability part of this, where we just kind of talk about leadership and what sports has meant to us. Let's get to the meat of this upcoming weekend, which is the Super Bowl. And like I said in the start, sports means a lot to most of the military. I mean, that's just one of those things that what's going on back home when you're overseas is who's winning in the college football, who's winning March Madness. You do all those, you do all that stuff overseas. You fill out brackets. You sit and watch games. And I'll share a quick story, and we'll talk about the Super Bowl is Cantillo Valley. You guys are familiar. I've talked about Cantillo when we were up there. This is before the age of easy access to communications. Every Monday, I guess would have been Monday over there when the games were here, there would be a radio call. And from the Tactical Operations Center up on the hill by Castle Grade School, they would call down the sports scores for the day. And I know there's a lot of things going on when you're doing stuff, but that's the one time a day where everybody would just kind of stop, even if they weren't a sports fan, and they would listen to see, who won those games that day. And it was just it was something we could rely on every Sunday or Monday for that 45 days that we were in that godforsaken valley. But like you said, you don't remember the good times. I remember the bad times. And right now, that's probably one of my favorite memories that I have. And then the Super Bowl. We spent many Super Bowls overseas sitting there watching. I watched The Catch with Manning with Manning and his wide receiver. I can't think of his name. Uh, there
Oh
in
man,
Washington, Kandahar there. And
I was there with you.
yeah, there's just those little moments that you have sports related. I watched Duke win a championship
Yeah.
when I was deployed. So uh, it's a big part of culture. It's a big part of what we are and what we do. So we're going to break down the Super Bowl. And I was thinking, there's a lot of similarities between the military and sports and football in general. So we'll have a little fun, and we'll start here, and I'll kick it off. There are positions in the Army. Your platoon leader, your platoon sergeant, your company commander, your battalion commander, your command sergeant major, and you have positions in football all the same, which wide receiver, tight end, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, your owner. So I thought it'd be interesting to compare what military would transition into what it would be called in football and vice versa. So we got a list here. We've been working on it for the last couple of days, and I'll break down my positions first. We're starting with team leaders. So team leaders are kind of like they're the pulse. They're the ones who get stuff done in the military, but they can also be a little bit dramatic sometimes and can go out and party a little bit too hard and get a DUI or beat up somebody's husband downtown from a different unit. So I put the team leaders are kind of like the wide receivers of the platoon. Kind of a diva every once in a while, but super important. They're kind of on an island every once in a while. There's certain team leaders that they just love themselves. They love the heck out of themselves. And I really think a lot of these could be interchangeable, but that's where I put my team leaders. So, and then I did squad leaders of a platoon, and I'm talking, primarily an infantry platoon here. I think the squad leaders are kind of like your linebackers of the group. So, they're those linebackers. It doesn't matter if you're offense or defense. They kind of have a demigod feeling about them. Like nobody on the offense, maybe some of those grouchy offensive linemen might mess with them a little bit, but nobody's messing with your linebackers. If you're thinking about like the Clay Matthews of the world, and some of those all-time great linebackers, you're not messing with those guys. They're not all there. It's like some squad leaders, right? You're not sure if you want to give this guy a platoon, right? He's a great break in case of war, but I don't know if he was in football, I don't know if I want to give him the defensive coordinator position because he's a little bit out there, So I put the squad leaders as my linebackers. And then we have our platoon leaders because you got to have them, right? They got to be there. We can't get rid of them. We've tried. So I think they're kind of like the kicker. They're the kicker of the organization, right? You got to have them. They're in and out. They're not there all the time. Some of them are all-time greats, kickers, like your McPherson's, who's about to play in the Super Bowl. But for the most part, they're just kind of there to, not mess things up, and then everything goes wrong and they miss the kick at the end of the game, we can blame it on them, right? They take the fall when things get a little bit crazy on target. The platoon leader ends up kind of getting chewed out by the battalion commander when he actually had nothing to do with the overall plan. It's kind of like a kicker who misses a field goal to win. It's not his fault, but he's got to take the fall there at the end. Sergeant majors are next on the list, and I think they're a special mix, right? Sergeant major, that's a hard one to define. I think they could go in a lot of things. I think they're part special teams coach, a little bit nutty special teams coach. They're part offensive, part defensive coordinator. And I know I'm not defining them to an actual position because it really depends on how engaged your sergeant major is, right? And there's also part angry groundskeeper, equipment manager in there, right? Get off my grass. I just painted the field. Put your pads up, clean the locker room. I hate washing your jock straps. Like this. Sergeant majors are a broad spectrum, and in retrospect, I wish I had taken them off the list almost because they can vary so much. But the special teams coaches are, it's in the name. They're special. And the last thing I got on there is our company commanders. Got to throw another officer on there, and they're the kind of same. It depends on the company commander who they are, but I think they kind of. They act important when they really aren't, right? They think they are in charge and are making all the decisions, but the NCOs are actually the ones running things in the background and shadow governor. So I think that they're kind of like the owner's son, right? They're like that. Who's the son for Vegas? you know,
Davis.
Al Davis's kid, Mark, I think.
Mark Davis, yeah.
Kind of wily, kind of crazy. Then you got Jimmy Johnson's son, who thinks he's kind of running things, but we all know the owner of the Cowboys.
Yeah, Jones,
Jerry Jones.
Jerry's son.
We know he's doing everything. You know, they're just there, right? They think they're in charge of stuff. They're not. They're gonna get the team. Like they're gonna inherit the team at some point. They're gonna be a battalion commander. But they're just there again as kind of another whipping post for it. So that's my translation to those 5 positions. What do you got?
So yeah, I'd kind of go along I'm going to throw the privates out there. We didn't talk about them. They're the O line and the D line.
I agree.
They're the grit. They're down in the trenches. They're taking the blows. They're doing the dirty work that nobody else wants to do. And those guys are where the rubber meets the road. And then the team leaders, I had outlined them as skill position players. I put all those divas into kind of the same box.
Yep.
And then they're interchangeable. You know, they only, in this case, they touch the ball more than 5 or 6 times a game. But it depends on what part of the objective you're on, obviously. Yeah. But definitely your divas down doing the dirty work, scoring the touchdowns for you, doing the cool stuff.
Look at a little Dion Sanders in there. He's a cornerback diva. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, and it's all, you get to do the cool stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
skill position players.
All the glory.
All the glory comes to the team leaders, you know, and then you've got the squad leaders. And the way I looked at the squad leaders is wasn't a single position, but the team captains. The captains for each group.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have your team captain for your linebackers, or you have your 3 defensive captains on the defensive side of the ball. That call the plays. You got the green sticker, blue sticker.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
guy taking the plays from the sideline and calling them in and running them. Managing the on-field perspective, moving pieces and players where they need to be so that you can make sure that play is going to be successful. And that's what the squad leaders do in my mind. The PL, we kind of use that as the example. You mentioned kicker, and I can relate to that. The kicker, he's the kicker. You know what? He may not be the most important player on the field all the time, but when it comes down to it in the game, and you need him, and it's overtime, and you just got the ball back, and you're on the 30-yard line, and you need him to put it through the goalpost, that guy can be the most crucial human being on the battlefield.
That's right.
At times. So kicker makes a lot of sense. CSM. I put assistant head coach on there.
Oh, that's good. I
agree.
agree.
CSM assistant head coach. He's the guy. He's either the OC, the DC, the special teams coordinator, but he's the assistant head coach. He's the 60 to 70-year-old grizzled vet who never got the chance to be the head coach of the team, and now he's out there and he's
Monty Kiffin of the world.
That's right. He's doing all the shit the head coach doesn't want to do, and running the show. Really banging heads and making people do things that they don't necessarily want to do, and making tough decisions. And then the company commander. I see it. You said owner's son. I could see more of the owner. Think Jerry Jones, right?
Okay, yeah.
Jerry, he's trying to control the GM part of it. He's trying to control the head coach. He's trying to control everything, but he controls nothing at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
He does control assets, manages people, the overall scheme and maneuver. But once you hit the ground, he's reporting. Yeah. And there's not a whole lot of activity that he's doing. He may be making a crucial decision here and there, but his decisions usually come after the fact, and that's in refinement of the next plan. Refinement of the personnel. In collaboration with the senior NCO corps. And so
I think with the commander, it's like with the owner, he's not going to be the reason you win the Super Bowl, but he can absolutely be the reason you lose.
Yeah.
Or don't get there for a long time. Jerry, just get out of the way and let everybody else do their job.
And he also sets the tone and the culture for the organization. Yeah. We always say 2 years. If you get a bad company commander, first sergeant, CSM, battalion commander, whatever position it may be, wait 2 years and he'll turn over. But they really do set the culture at that level of the organization. Yeah. It can be a good culture, or it can be a toxic culture.
Yeah, you got the commander or the owner that's he comes in at 4 a.m. for no reason and stays till 10 a.m. every night, and you don't know why he's doing that, right? And it just sets a bad culture.
Yeah, and then the rest of the PLs and the rest of the officers feel like they need to stay till 10 p.m. And even though they're not doing anything to contribute.
And we're picking on the commanders. That role can go in reverse. reverse with like your first sergeant, platoon sergeant.
Absolutely.
As well. So calm down out there if you're an officer listening.
They're all interchangeable,
Yeah.
once you get to those. And I can't say enough about the relationships between a commander and a first sergeant, a platoon leader, and a platoon sergeant. Those relationships are all some of the most important relationships I've had in my lifetime.
Absolutely.
Learn, grow, and develop through that.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do the same kind of question, but in reverse. So, you're going to go on target tonight, right? You can only take, and I threw one in here that I didn't tell you about, so you can think about it as I go here.
I like it.
You're going into a gunfight, but you can't take your platoon. You have to take 5 people from the NFL of any era. Those are the guys you're taking with you, and a GFC. You got to pick one person who's a head coach that's going to be your GFC on the ground, your ground force commander, who's going to be out there putting his initials on bombs, okay? So my first pick, if I'm, standing up there calling manifest call, is Gronkowski. I need a guy, and every platoon needs a guy or a girl that is willing to conduct a body breach, right? And I think Gronk is just crazy enough to, if we get there toward the building, the Bangalore doesn't work, we didn't bring the ladders, I can go tell him to jump on the wire and let the boys run over him. And that's a real thing because I was the Gronk when I was a private and told to do a body breach. And what I said following was, what is a body breach? And my squad leader told me, and I went and dove on the wire as they jumped and walked over me in through a window. So I think Gronk is my body breach guy. Squad leader, if I'm taking somebody who's going to be there, it's Jerry Rice, right? Jerry Rice is an all-timer. He is known for his hard work ethic. He is known in practice catching the ball and running it for a touchdown every time he caught a ball in practice, full speed. He's the guy I need on the ground to chase the squirters or chase the people that are running off the target, the bad guys that are running away. I'm going to send, there's always that squad that's the running squad. For some reason, they like running.
Everywhere they go.
Yeah, 5 miles and 100 push-ups every day. I think that's probably Jerry's team, and they can go chase stuff off out there because my knees can't handle it. And the next thing, you got to have some some people that are going to hold the standard, some real meat eaters in that area. So none other than Lawrence Taylor, right? All-time great
LT,
New York Giant. He's like one of those guys that like talk about the seas kind of part when he's walking through a locker room, or that squad leader that they just don't want to talk to him, they don't want to mess with him, but they know if there's a gunfight that night, they want him there. He's going to have the respect. He might get a little rowdy, during downtime, and you might have to worry a little bit if you have a urinalysis on Monday morning, but you need him in the gunfight. And then next one on my list, Ronnie Lott. I mean, well, how can you not take a guy that cut his own finger off at halftime during a game to keep playing? And if you don't know, he did cut off the tip of his pinky because he had broke it. And they said he was going to have to come out, and instead of coming out, he cut the tip of his pinky off. So every platoon has one. Most people I know have been the guy with the slip disc or the fractured ankle that's still going on target, right? And everybody in the platoon, when they're sucking and the walk's long and hard and uphill, they look to that guy and go, well, if he's doing it, what do I have to complain about? And I think that's Ronnie coming in there like I know him, Ronnie, right? And then you got to have something to balance out all this crazy. And I'm taking Peyton Manning just because of his control, right? So when you have that young PL that doesn't know what he's doing, you need a platoon sergeant that can come in there and be like, manage assets and tell the PL, I got this one. You just watch and learn. And Peyton's up there, with all of he's a master at preparation and knowing what the enemy's going to do or the other team's going to do. And I think he's the guy that you just tell him there's a mission going, and all of a sudden you come back in the jock and the route's done. He knows where black side is. He's already got people up watching ISR screens, getting patterns of life. He's just doing everything you got to do. And then the last one is your ground force commander. Who are you taking out there to run the ship? And you want somebody out there that is not afraid to make a decision when the decisions are going to be hard to be made. And as much as they drive me nuts, the Patriots, I'm taking Bill Belichick because I think he's a dark lord. if the jock's calling down there and trying to control him and tell him what to do, he's going to be the first one unplugging the mic and doing what has to be done on the ground to make sure the boys come home. Everybody's seen him in a press conference or an interview. He is the coldest guy in the room. He is not there for that. He's there to win football games, and I think I could count on him, even though I don't really like the Patriots and him. If I had him on the support by fire berm as I'm assaulted, I have no worries that he's going to do what needs to be done for me to get in there and clear the objective. So there's my 6 that I'm taking from the NFL to go on target with me.
All right, so down to my 6 here. Number 1, and this one's going to kind of hit home for some of our Ranger folk, Pat Tillman.
Oh,
all right. God rest his soul. Pat, I had the opportunity when, he was up at 275 to play against him in Ranger Rendezvous. We have Ranger Rendezvous every 2 years, change of command. RCO changes out. All the battalions come in. It's like the Greek games. We play all the different sports. Everyone volunteers and picks, from tug of war to football to softball to wrestling to boxing, or not wrestling, boxing, combatives. So Pat Tillman, I had the opportunity to play against him and his brother, Omar Villa, one of my old squad leaders.
Yeah.
Him and I were on the 175 football team, and we played against Pat and his brother in that rendezvous back in the day, and we beat him for the championship game, and we took the trophy home that year, and we rubbed it in their face the entire time. But I can't, the sacrifice that he made, and you can look throughout history and you can pick out a bunch of the folks throughout history that have gone, either been, great actors or professional athletes, accomplished significant things, made a ton of money, and they put that all aside to go and fight for their country. So not a better guy that I would have. And I would say Pat would be the guy who, I'm gonna name off a few others, but he's one of the squad leaders that's running the command and control, moving the pieces for me, setting the tone, motivating the men out there, and then 2 of my other squad leader, platoon sergeant types, Brett Favre, Tom Brady, guys that can make a plan, that can get the troops in the places they need to be, set the tone, and move folks forward in an intelligent manner. Obviously. Favre, a bit of a gunslinger. You like to have that out there every now and again. Favre's kind of taking my score to chase team. He's throwing up some Hail Marys out there, taking care of business and dealing. And in Favre's team, we got a couple of grinders down in the trenches, and that's O.J. Simpson and Ray Lewis. We know those boys are going to carve up some jokers if they need to out there.
I was going to touch that one, but I didn't. But
so I went a little Inglorious Bastards on you here.
I love it.
So I got OJ and I got Ray Lewis. I know they're going to do the dirty work. They're going to grind it out, and they're going to take care of business where it needs to be done. And then also the other grinder, their team leader type, Ray Nitschke, out there trooping the lines. Absolutely. You could put Dick Butkus in this role. Guys, Jim Brown's another one. He didn't put out punishment from a tackling role. He put out punishment from a running back, just dealing it. He was dealing death on a daily basis to dudes out there. There were plenty of people in the NFL that did not want to tackle that man. And one of my favorite things to do is watch some of the old film, especially when I was a young man growing up in football, watching Jim Brown, watching Nitschke, watching Butkus, watching Lawrence Taylor, Ronnie Lott, Steve Atwater of the old Denver Broncos, incredible. And then my man pulling all the puppet strings, the maestro running the show, Vince Lombardi. The trophy was named after him for a reason. I believe Belichick is a disciple of the Lombardi era.
I agree.
He is cut from the same cloth, and those two will forever live in my mind as the two greatest coaches. And Landry, we put Landry out there too. He's a Cowboy, so I don't like to count him, but Landry is right there with him.
Yeah, I agree. I had Lombardi on my list. I had Bill Walsh, Lombardi, Belichick. They're all they changed the game with stuff that they did, right? Next thing we'll get into, everybody does it. Every sports show does it. We're a sports show now, so our top 5 all-time players. And because we're kind of running long in the tooth here, we'll just 5 through 2, we'll just name them. and then give a little bit of a reason why you chose number one, so we can get on to some of the other talk and then break down the actual Super Bowl tomorrow when it happens on Sunday. Um, pretty. I mean, this list is. It's like there's not a wrong answer type list, right? As long as you're not putting something crazy up there. But there are so many great football players. When I sat down and started looking at this, I had a lot of fun just kind of building it out and remembering some of these players and saying, he should go there. No, this guy should go there. So I'll go 5-2 quickly. Lawrence Taylor, we've already talked about him a little bit. Barry Sanders, one of the most dynamic runners of the ball I've ever seen. I wish he had stayed around a little longer. Joe Montana. Jerry Rice, who I always thought was the GOAT before, and I hate saying it, is Tom Brady. And I'll tell you why with Tom. Being a sports guy, growing up playing sports, all you want to do is win championships. And that is what he's done. Marino didn't win a championship, right? There's others out there that were really good and didn't win a championship. Phillip Rivers.
There are some that are really good and only won one
Yep.
championship,
Yep.
but should have
Steve
won
Young.
many more.
Aaron Rodgers. So
Brett
he won 7 championships. He's number one, 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time NFL MVP, 14-time Pro Bowl, played till he was 44, I want to say, which is phenomenal. So it's hard. I don't think it's wrong to put him up there, even though you cheered against him for a lot of years. Who's your top 5?
So for me, LT was on there, but you'd already taken him. We had talked about that one, so I didn't want to go down that road. But Bart Starr, you talk about a guy who set the tone for how a sports figure in the spotlight should act. He was the standard for, a man's man, a father, and a leader. He had Lombardi, who he was under his tutelage, obviously growing up. But Bart Starr, in my mind, epitomized the position, the glamour, the glitz, the glamour, that in the headlines, the way a human being should act when he is a role model for other people. And that, and then on the field, obviously, he won 2 Super Bowls and how many championships. Right. We're probably not going to talk about that today, but the Packers. I mean, there's numbers of Super Bowls out there, but if you combine the championships and the Super Bowls, obviously Green Bay's greatest franchise in history, and Lambeau Field is like the Vatican of the NFL. So next on the list, Bo Jackson. We go back to multi-sport athletes. You went Barry Sanders. I loved watching Barry Sanders.
Very good.
We picked Tony Mandridge, the steroided freak who washed out one pick ahead of Barry Sanders in the NFL draft. As a Green Bay Packer fan, if you don't think I remember that every day. So I loved Barry, but Bo Jackson, multi-sport athlete. If he didn't have that hip injury, what he could have accomplished in his career and what he did in the short time that he got was just incredible.
I agree.
Also, he's an avid archery.
Yeah, he's an outdoorsman.
Outdoorsman and loves archery. Outdoorsman, love the guy. Just great character, human being. Dion Sanders, the other one. Dion. What he did on the field as a player, what he did in baseball, and now what he's doing as a coach.
Yep.
Again, like Bart Starr, he's a man's man. He was the glitz and glamour, a little more the glitz and glamour side, but he is definitely a leader and a sound human being, just a good human being overall.
He's been open about his mistakes.
Absolutely.
Which is, it's hard for people to do. Vulnerability, right? Yeah.
Yep. Being vulnerable.
Yep.
Jerry Rice, the 2 GOATs in my mind. You got Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time. There's no debate. It's like Michael Jordan. Anybody who compares LeBron James to Michael Jordan, get out of here.
Yeah,
get off
the podcast.
Yeah, not happening. And then Tom Brady. You've got Tom Brady, 243 wins, 15 Pro Bowls, 5 Super Bowl MVPs, 7 rings, 316 starts, 625 touchdowns, 84,000 yards passing.
Yeah.
Right. And my brothers and I have this debate all the time. My oldest brother, Joe, says that Super Bowls are a team trophy and MVPs are an individual trophy.
Yeah.
That's a load of crap. They're both team trophies,
they are. Yeah.
right? You don't get there without having the people around you that can provide you the opportunities to
agree.
be great.
Yep.
And Tom knows that better than anybody. And I was watching a interview on another sports podcast the other day, and they were talking to one of the guys that had played on the Patriots with Brady. And he said, Tom makes you feel like, he's got all the superstardom. This guy walked in, he's a rookie. And he said one of the first people that came up to him and welcomed him to the facility was Tom Brady. He made him feel like he was the only person in the room. Like they were going to be good friends from the moment that he came through the door of that building. And that being personable, being outgoing, sympathizing with others, the emotional intelligence, empathy that he has for the young players coming in, leadership, development, setting the culture. That's a guy. And Tom has done, and being the poster child or poster boy for what to do as an athlete in the spotlight. He is set the tone. Great family man, to all accounts, from what I know about him. And then also what he's been able to do with the TB12 stuff, and just promote good health, wellness, and then to come out, recently he's come out a lot when Antonio Brown was going through some of that stuff.
Stood up for him.
A lot of the mental health stuff, championed his efforts. Hey, needs to get the help that he needs. Never put the guy down one time about anything, even though it may have been detrimental to the team. Tom took the high road in all accounts, and really was there for him as he needed it.
Yeah, like I said, that's one of those lists where there's a lot of people you can put on there. Emmitt Smith, why does he stay off? I think he stays off because of his offensive line that he had. There's just so many that you could put on there. Peyton Manning. It's fun to talk about. It's fun.
Absolutely.
It's fun to have a couple cocktails and talk trash about it. But I think in the NFL right now, I think the NFL is cyclical. Like all things are kind of cyclical, and it's going through a changing of the guard right now. We're seeing it. It happened, in the 90s when Emmitt left, Barry Sanders left, Steve Young left, Troy Aikman left. They kind of started phasing out, and then kind of ended with Brett Favre, kind of was the end of some of that era. It feels like that's happening again with some of the Tom Brady and Peyton Manning coming out, and Phillip Rivers come out, and some of these young studs are coming up now, right? And it's a fun time to watch who's going to be the next one. Your Mahomeses of the world, your Bosa brothers on the defensive side. So the next, list, a short list. If we'll say if you're starting an NFL franchise, you're now the Columbus Rangers. Why not? And you get to pick 3 players from any team that are kind of this new generation. Who you taking? And I'll start as I'm going to start my 3-1 is Chase Young. You need an edge rusher. You need somebody that's just nasty and can get after the quarterback. From what I've seen, he's got good leadership ability, good leadership presence, says the right things. He's in that J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, Bosa Brothers type, mold. And I think he'd be a good one to have on your defensive side of the franchise. I think number 2 might surprise some people that I'd pick him. And it's not just because I'm a 49ers fan. It's because I think what he has done has maybe ushered in a new thing in the NFL, which is Deebo Samuel. Going from wide receiver to running back, who handles more of the load of the carries than I've ever seen a raised wide receiver do. He did some things in the playoffs and in the last 9 games that the 49ers did to get into the playoffs that were just, you've never seen it from a wide receiver. You've seen tough wide receivers do things either in the slot coming across and taking hits, but putting them in the backfield over and over. And the defense knows when he's in the backfield, 99.9, it's going to Deebo. And he was getting 7 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards. It was crazy. It was just something I haven't seen. And I think we might see some coaches try to find more of that as we go.
There's one person in history, and history generally repeats itself, that reminds me of that, and that's Roger Craig. If you remember that man.
Yep.
More receiving and rushing yards than anyone in history, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Combined yards.
That's right.
When you look at Roger Craig and what he was able to, the guy could play anywhere on the field.
Yeah.
And he was successful. Yeah. And that's, I think, when you look at it, that's probably, where they pulled that Deebo Samuel role from. I mean, think about the history of the 49ers.
Yeah.
Craig was such a versatile player for them. And it's just incredible to see what they've been able to do with Deebo.
I agree. And I think, if you're starting a franchise, and not to go out too long, but he's somebody that could come in and he could coach the running back room, help, lead and mentor, and he could do that to the wide receiver group. So could do it all on a new franchise that we're making up here, right? And obviously you got to have a quarterback. And in my opinion, you got to have a quarterback, especially in this league. I'm getting Josh Allen. I'm taking Josh Allen all day. Wow. I see him in like a Brett Favre type. He's a horse of a person. He fits into that Buffalo culture so good. He's a blue collar guy. He could come out there, throw the ball on Sunday, and then go help you unload a truckload of alfalfa hay into the barn the next day. And I think he just seems like a good person, as well as a really good athlete. And I enjoy watching him, and I think he'd be fun to have on your team. And like I said, you could pick a lot of 3 people here and not be wrong. What's your 3?
So I thought I almost scratched Patty Mahomes there. I had an alternate in case you picked him, but Mahomie, Pat Mahomes. There's no better player, no better human being and player from my perspective and what I know about him and what I've seen from him. Other than the fact he sounds like Kermit the Frog when he talks, Patty Mahomes is just a stand-up guy, phenomenal athlete, phenomenal player. A man's man, a lot like Tom Brady. I've heard a lot of stories about his character, like Tom Brady's character. Yeah. And then Micah Parsons.
Oh, yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys, arch enemies of both the Niners and the Green Bay Packers. But Micah Parsons is such a multi-tool athlete. Yeah. The guy, you want him to edge rush, you want him to be a middle linebacker,
yeah, he could do that.
You want him to take a tight end or a slot receiver up the seam. Whatever. He's a lot like Deebo. He's he's a defensive version of Deebo Samuel.
He's a Swiss Army knife.
He is. Yeah. Yep. And then the third one, I had to go Wisconsin native, Ryan Ramczyk, offensive tackle, backside protector. I wanted to go pass rusher, but I had to give a shout out to some of the guys doing the dirty in the trenches. Yeah. And Ryan Ramczyk, Wisconsin guy, just love what he's doing for the New Orleans Saints. Just been a phenomenal run for him.
I agree. I think all of those lists are just great conversation pieces. It's fun to talk about that stuff and think about it. I'm never going to take Jerry Rice on target, but it would be funny. But who would have thought that Pat Tillman would have went on target and had the unfortunate end that he had. So
exactly.
You never know what's going to happen. So I know we're at an hour now. I'm glad you guys are sticking with us. This can of this soup,
the mushroom challenge.
This mushroom is like percolating over here in this hot room. And stick around. One of us is going to chug that and hopefully keep it down because I have new carpet in my studio here. But we're going to get to...
It's going to be interesting.
Now we'll get to, finally the game of the week, the Super Bowl, which is, in my estimation, like a national holiday, right? We should have the following Monday off, in my opinion. We should, or they should move it to Saturday.
Agree 100%.
Let's break down the game a little bit. You don't have to be a former NFL player or sports commentator to understand football and break down a game, and we're going to show you that. It's just like being in the military. There's a playbook. There's certain things that you run and you do and things you look for, and every guy out there or girl in a bar or working on a construction site today or standing at a water cooler, they're doing what we're doing right now behind a microphone.
That's right.
And it's a great time of year. It's always sad when football's over. I'm not really into college basketball until March, and there's kind of like this gray period where there's like, what do I do? And that's where Call of Duty comes in, right?
That's right.
Mind, right?
Yep. You find your niche.
Yeah. So I'll break down first game, teams, keys. I'll pick my winner, and I'll pass it off to you, and then we'll get into the trivia chugging contest. So Rams, Bengals. I saw the Rams going there. I thought they would go there early in the season. Didn't see the Bengals getting there, right? I was surprised by that. It's kind of a matchup of veteran team versus some new blood, right? You have some contrasts there. You have Matt Stafford, 13-year vet, former Georgia boy. Andrew Whitworth, the offensive lineman who's 40 years old. He's the same age as me and Josh sitting here about to play in the Super Bowl, which is pretty cool. Aaron Donald, he's been around for a while. Von Miller getting his chance at it. So you have those, Eric Weddle, who was he was in a retirement community down in Florida 3 weeks ago, and now he's playing well in playoff games and
playing shuffleboard safety in the NFL.
I know, right? So you have your old vets versus your new shiny car, the Bengals, and nothing shiny has ever came out of Cincinnati, in my opinion. But you got Cool Joe Burrow in there. Reminds me a lot of Namath with his
Oh
swagger.
yeah, yeah.
But
Broadway Joe.
he does seem a little more humble than Broadway Joe. Not, I think maybe Broadway Joe gets a little bit of a picture painted of him because you just hear Broadway Joe. But I like Joe. He's just a cool as a cucumber, right? Jamar Chase, another young stud wide receiver. They have an experienced defense. I don't know a lot of the defense. I was looking at their defensive team. There's some experience there, but they do have a guy named, I want to read it, Chidobe Awuzie.
Yep.
I'm sold on the name alone.
He was actually drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, and
was
I
he?
was pulling for him to be a Green Bay Packer back in the day. He was signed via free agency this offseason to the Bengals.
Yeah.
And I forget where he came out of, maybe Iowa or Colorado?
Colorado.
Colorado.
That's right. Yeah. My name is Yuma Barnett. You don't run into a lot of those. I saw a figure skater from Korea yesterday named Yuma, and that's the only one
no
I've
kidding.
seen spelled the same way and everything. But we have couple unique names there, so I think it could be an interesting matchup. But if you talk about the game, what's your keys to the game? Anybody there? I think the Bengals have to keep the game close early, right? The Rams are at home, essentially. They have a history of starting fast, getting points up there fast. I think the key is the Bengals need to survive the first 4 drives or possessions by the Rams, holding them to 10 or few points on those first 4 drives, or matching them at a minimum on points. Because I think I've seen it all year with the Rams. Stafford and Cup are on my fantasy team. I've seen them start fast, have some lag, do some stupid things, taper off, throw some stupid interceptions. The game is close. Matt gets a little hyper.
Week 18, San Francisco 49ers
Yeah.
is all I need to say about that.
So I think Bengals got to keep it close. If you keep it close, Stafford might do something stupid. He wants a ring bad. He's the window is closing for him. And Cool Joe, we've seen it this postseason. He could flip a script, right? Nothing seems to faze the guy, right? Another key, I think, is the Bengals offensive line. You can't have the Rams getting 9 sacks on him like he did earlier in the playoffs. Keep Donald in check. Keep that all that defense. I mean, they got a great defense from their cornerbacks out there to Jalen Ramsey to Von Miller and Donald. So if you can keep them in check, not allow maybe 3 or 4 sacks, but 9. I think that one of those would be a strip sack or something. The way that those guys hit, and I think the Bengals almost need to be perfect to win this game, right? Which is everything seems to be stacked against them, but it has been the whole playoffs, and they've come out on top. I didn't think they had a chance against the Chiefs. I thought that was going to be a blowout, and they are very gritty. They're just like they take on the personality of the quarterback and just kind of nothing bothers them. They're grinding it out. They're going to play all 60 minutes and have come out on top. So I'll say, even if they do everything perfect, it's going to be tough. I think the Rams will win this one 37-28 is what I'm calling. And
interesting.
I'll pass it off to you.
Interesting, yeah. So you look at the Rams, it's the super team. It's the super team with the super coach, the hot young coach that has created quite a pipeline of NFL coaches from Matt LaFleur to our boy over there coaching the Bengals, Zach.
Yeah.
He is. It's been a hell of a run for him. He hasn't had the quarterback. And when Matt Stafford, that trade was made for Matt Stafford, I said, hey, this is going to be significant.
Yes.
This is going to be significant. If Matt Stafford gets with that coach and that offense, back then they had Robert Woods as well. He's out for the season now. So that's a big hit to the Rams. But they did backfill him with Odell Beckham. And that coach and that offense and that scheme with that quarterback could be the piece that takes them over the top. And when you look at that defense, like you said, Jalen Ramsey, Donald, they take no-name linebackers and have for the last 2 or 3 years and made them phenomenal players. Same thing with the secondary. That group on defense, adding Von Miller, just another pass rusher off the edge. It is such a dynamic group that if the Rams offense can get ahead and the Rams defense takes the momentum that they've carried after week 18, that loss to the 49ers, the momentum they've created and carried throughout the playoffs, they will have the best opportunity to win this football game.
Yep.
That being said, my money is on the new Broadway Joe.
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
Yeah. Watching the run that Burrow and Chase and Jefferson made at LSU to get to that national championship and seeing what they were able to do against Clemson in the big game. Watching Chase work, everyone was raving about Burrow. I thought Chase was going to be the better of all of those players on that field, watching him in that national championship game and throughout the rest of the season. And everyone, all the draft pundits were arguing about, do they pick a left tackle because Burrow's getting his head knocked off out there? And that was my biggest concern and my thoughts as well. They probably need to pick a left tackle. But it came back to, if they can pair Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow, that's going to be something special. They already have the connection. They won't have the issues dealing with that a quarterback and first-year receiver would normally go through feeling each other out, going through an extensive process of learning as a unit, as a connection, as a number one target on the team. They already had that relationship established, and the talent level was so good that I thought they could pick Jamar Chase in that draft and get a tackle and start, refining that offensive line for agency, second, third, fourth round of the draft and build that offensive line there, but get that key piece. And when they picked him, I knew he was going to be dangerous. Yeah. I did not expect them. I thought they would be middle of the road team this year, based off of Burrow recovering from the injury. You remember the beginning of the season when Burrow was in training camp and everyone's like, oh, he's washed out. Yeah. He blew out his ACL and he doesn't have it anymore. Yeah. Joe Burrow has the swagger. He's got the Tom Brady it factor. Yeah. And when you pair him with Jamar Chase, who I think is him and Jefferson, those are going to be the next young Jerry Rice type guys that are going to push the envelope in the NFL. Yeah. What they've been able to do in the few short seasons that Jefferson has had and the one season that Chase has had is just insane. And they will continue to build on that. Mark my words, both of them. I wish the Packers had drafted Jefferson as well. No offense to Jordan Love, but anyway, back on topic. The Bengals. I just think it's their year. I think it's their year. That defense, the no-name defense, Bates in the back end. Those guys are set. They've got Eli Apple out there. Everyone thought he was washed out. Almost, true. Had a couple of huge penalties in their first playoff game against the Raiders, if I remember correctly, and then almost took a pick six back to the house in the next one. And didn't end up working out. But he has stepped his game up from, as washing out as a New York Giant to becoming something on this roster, just like Awuzie. The way that this defense has come, and I think everyone is rallying around the Burrow mentality and the Chase mentality and the confidence that those two, exude into the team. And so my money is on the Bengals with the over-under being at 48.5. Ooh. I will take the Cincinnati Bengals 24, the Los Angeles Rams 21.
24-21.
We should probably have a side bet on this for the next show that we do.
Yeah, we absolutely should. I appreciate all you guys hanging out for the last hour and 12 minutes. I know I've had a blast. I don't care if only one person watches this. This has been great. But now it's time to get down and see how well we know our own teams and have a little wager. Oh, and there's a thing we used to do in the Army, and they bring chow out to the range, and every now and then you get mashed potatoes and gravy, right? And there's always some gravy left, and there's always somebody around willing to do a challenge who can chug a canteen cup full of gravy, who can, drink the Parmalat milk, drink the gallon of milk, and keep it down for 5 minutes.
5 minutes is the rule of thumb.
So there's this is right up our alley, right? We've done this. This isn't new. I just didn't think about it. I don't know if I should admit it. I've done this before. I've done crazy stuff like this before. But what it does, it builds bonds between people, right? When
That's
you do
right.
stuff like this. So, and you got to, and it, we're putting something on the line here. It's
That's
not just just a trivia question where we're going to go, I owe him lunch or something. He's got to do something here. So,
Yeah, it's not money.
or I do, right? So we'll go right into it. We'll alternate questions. All right. I'll start with you and you go back to me. And if we get down to 5 and we're tied, we'll do what every private in the military has done to see who gets the terrible guard shift is they just Rochambeau.
Paper, rock, scissors.
Paper, rock, scissors it, and we'll we'll drink this thing back here. It sounds like a worse idea the longer we go. All right.
It's getting warm now too.
Yeah, I know it is. It's good. It's like a soup. Okay. Who is the Green Bay Packers all-time leading wide receiver?
Well, I would say Sterling Sharp, but he dealt with some injuries at the end of the career and ended up coming out early. And then I'd have to put it between Greg Jennings and Donald Driver. And based off of Driver's longevity, I'd say Donald Driver.
You are correct.
Well,
that's one for you. Okay.
One in the bucket. All right. First question. History of the San Francisco 49ers. Name the 4 seasons by year the 49ers won the Super Bowl. Or correction, 5 seasons by year the 49ers won the Super Bowl.
That was a good correction there because I was going to say 5 there because they've won 5 Super Bowls. 4, I have that cloth hanging in my, like the banner. Had that hanging in my room growing up. I had all the Super Bowls on it. 4 of them in the 80s, 1 of them in the 90s. 81, 84, 88, 89 back to back. And then Steve Young got the monkey off his back in 94.
94, yeah. You are correct, sir.
Number 2. Along the same lines as what you just asked of me is how many Super Bowls, and I have to capitalize it on my paper, and I have to say it to him, because we always go down the hole of, well, if you actually count championships before the Super Bowl era, they've won 9 of those, and then however many Super Bowls, how many Super Bowls, Super Bowl era, have the Packers won?
So we were cool before NFL was cool.
Yep.
We were winning championships back before Super Bowl was a thing. All right, it's just what we do up there in Wisconsin. It's part of our blood. All right, and since obviously there's Super Bowl 1 and 2 that we won on the back end of all those championships.
Yes.
And then we won another one in 98 and our 4th in 2010.
Final answer, 4?
That's correct.
You are correct. All right. When I talked to Josh, I said we're going to kind of throw some softballs out up front to warm us up. So it should only get a little more tricky from here.
Yeah, we're trying to ease into it. So I'll give him a history question that's relatively easy. What year were the 49ers founded?
What year were the 49ers founded? So that's a good question, and it's a lot of people say 1949 because it seems to make sense, but it has nothing to do with that year, the name, right? So you got to take 3 away from it and get 46, 1946.
You are correct, sir. And on your note of 49, that is when the San Francisco 49ers were actually enveloped by the NFL and became part of the NFL as a franchise. So 49 is a key year. It's just not the founding year.
Correct. All right. Another stats question, an all-time leader. This was tricky for me when I was doing the research. I didn't pick this name. But Packers all-time leader of sacks. And that stat became official in 1982. So there is something where somebody went and dug some stuff up. But the official stat, 1982, who's your all-time sack leader for the Green Bay Packers?
So we've had some great ones over the years. Reggie White, obviously, was there for a long time. Kamir Biamila. But I think I would have to go with recent history and the long, flowing locks And his lion's mane of Clay Matthews, man of the ladies.
Yes, you are correct, Clay Matthews, and you're right. I picked played for the Eagles, Reggie White. I had him, but I forgot about his years with the Eagles.
Yep.
That actually put him up there. So
He was the sack master.
yeah, okay.
Minister of Defense.
All right, you're 3 for 3 so far.
All right. Third question on the 49ers. How many 49ers quarterbacks were inducted into the Hall of Fame? This is a two-parter in the 20th century. And what were their names?
A two-parter. So I actually have 6 questions here. So
In a way, yeah.
this is.
But I mean, if you don't know this,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of challenging your manhood
Okay,
anyway.
okay. Oh, challenge to manhood. The double dog dare. Okay, I got you. Inducted in the Hall of Fame. A lot of people, the two come straight to people's mind is Steve Young and Joe. And then there's one that gets forgot in the conversation a lot. And you remember him because his name begins with the same letter mine does. And you got Wyatt Tittle.
That's right. You are correct, sir. 3 for 3.
Okay. Now they get more difficult, I promise.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Yes. All-time leader, stat question, of interceptions. And you're going to have to go way back. And I don't know why I told you that.
Oh, no. I know who it is. Herb Adderley.
Oh. Bobby Dillon is the answer.
Bobby Dillon.
52. 52.
Jesus, that's a long way. What year did he play? What years?
1952 through 59. So he racked those up in a pretty short period of time there.
You went way back.
I did.
You went way back.
I went the way back machine.
So we're gonna just slide it a little closer.
Okay.
That's one
That's
question
good. Let's
closer.
keep it over there.
All right, question number 4. This kind of goes off of our history questions that we started with earlier. All right, so in 46, when the 49ers first became a franchise, what conference were the 49ers a member of when they began their football journey?
The AFC.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
It was the All-American Conference, the AAC, which would later be dissolved in 49 when they were soaked up by the NFL and became part of
So it's
the National Football League.
we're back to the center.
We're back to the center mass. We went history. You really killed me with that interception question. That is one
Now this
It's
question,
not
I pondered this question for a long time before I put it on there because I thought he either knows this as soon as it comes out of my mouth, he knows it, or he doesn't. It's I think it's that easy. Bart Starr question.
Oh,
Where was he born? What state was Bart Starr born in?
oh, jeez, I know this too.
You're on the clock.
Dallas, Texas.
Oh. He's in our neighboring state of Alabama.
God bless. I knew it was one of those. I thought it was Texas, Louisiana, or Alabama.
Born and passed away in Alabama.
Oh God, I should have known that.
All right, this is for the
Coming in hot.
win right here.
Coming in hot.
Oh, golly, I don't want
All
to
right.
drink that.
Historical stats question here.
Okay.
Rusher. All right, we're talking leading rusher in San Francisco 49er history in the 20th century. I won't do to what you almost did to me there. You know, we're not going to go back.
Frank Gore.
Really? Roger Craig out there, and you didn't want to, all that time?
I'm going Gore.
Yeah, it was Joe Perry. Anyway, it was 7,344 yards. So back to center mass we go with the glass.
That should end with a Rochambeau.
It should, and it is going to end with a
And I think
Rochambeau.
in all, just so it's 2 out of 3, right? Always with Rochambeau.
Yep.
Okay. My goodness. Here we go. All right. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Oh!
Never change. Never change.
Oh,
If you go with rock, go rock the whole time. Go
Oh, he
paper, go
got
paper
me.
the whole time. You go scissors the whole time.
All right. Well, since gosh dang it, since I get to be the one who drinks this
It's going to be glorious.
soup. I'm going to do the closeout now. I hope you guys enjoyed this.
Do we want to set the Super Bowl bet? Is it going to be something hot?
Yeah, you can.
The
Yeah, we'll do
challenge.
something hot. for the
Something
Super
hot.
Bowl. Yeah. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I had fun. It
Oh,
was a
this
good
is
time. If you want to see more stuff like this, let us know. Hit us up on the socials or in the comments. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back next week with the on Monday our regularly scheduled programming, if you will. And thanks for watching. And I'm gonna drink this stuff now and try not to throw up in my new studio.
Happy Super Bowl holiday. Don't get it on me. How are those mushrooms? Is it texture? Is it as it goes down? Is that good? I can't even imagine. There were some pretty big chunks in there. Normally they're not that big in a can.
It's so thick. I didn't think it'd be so thick.
Should have put some water in there. Thin it out a little bit. Oh, that was a big chunk. That was a big one.
No,
That was the whole mushroom there.